All right, how is everyone this morning? Good. Now we're skipping every other week, so I'm going to sum up the last couple stories so we get a running start, so even I remember where we're at. So if I remember right, the children of Israel got exiled out of Egypt, so now we're in Exodus, and they went through the Red Sea, right? And then they came to the other side, and what's one of the first things they started complaining about? Does anyone remember? They were getting low on food, right? Then they started complaining. What did they want to eat? They wanted meat and some bread. They wanted something else. So God sent them quail and manna. Then we go on and we come, there's a story, I don't think I read it yet, but there's a story in Numbers. I'll turn to it, but there's a rod that budded. Does anyone recall that story? A rod that budded? Whose rod was that? Almost. He was with Moses. Who was Moses with? Aaron. So I'm going to read that real quick. And Moses brought out all the rods from before the Lord unto the children of Israel, and they looked and took every man his rod. And the Lord said unto Moses, Bring Aaron's rod again before the testimony to be kept for a token against the rebels. See, they said, why are Moses and Aaron making all the shot? Like, we have our own people. We want them to lead us a different direction. God said, no, the person whose rod buds is the one that's supposed to lead you. And so Aaron's rod budded, and he said, And thou shalt quite take away their murmurings from me, so they die not. They were murmuring and complaining about every little thing, and God was getting sick of it. So then we see they come to Mount Sinai, and God gave them 10 commandments they could follow. Now, it's interesting to note that God commanded Moses, he said, take the manna, the rod, and the commandments and save them. Put them in something. Does anyone know what they did with them? Or the Ark of the Covenant, which went into the tabernacle. That is correct. Now, why do you think he would save those items particularly? Like, I'm not sure we can read about why in the Bible, but just my opinion, if I look at the manna, the bread, they were complaining because they were hungry, so God gave them bread. Then the rod, if they would look at this Ark of Covenant, and let's say my grandson would say, Grandfather, why is there a rod in here that budded? I would say, oh yeah, that's the time when we wanted to get another leader, and God said, no, the rod that buds is going to be your leader, the one that owns that rod. And then I would have to think of my failure where I was trying to overtake God. And then the 10 commandments, they said, we don't want God to talk to us. We just want 10 commandments. So what I see, and this is just my opinion, is I see all of their failures put in a box. And then when they would see those, they would be reminded of it. Now, every time they see those, they remind them of their failures. Do we ever fail today? Yes, we fail, right? Do you think God knows we're going to fail and that he has a plan that we're going to fail? I mean, he has a plan if we fail, right? So what was his plan when they couldn't follow these rules and everything? In Leviticus 16:6, this comes together beautiful when we see what God's plan was. So I'm going to read Leviticus 16:6. And Aaron shall offer his bull for the sin offering, which is for himself, and make an atonement for himself and his house. So even though Aaron was the leader God chose, he still makes mistakes, right? But he could make an atonement. Then after he offered up this bull for his own sins, then he shall take 2 goats, represent them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle, and Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, one lot for the Lord, the other for a scapegoat. Does anyone remember that story? What? Now, why would they set the one free and kill the other one? We'll get into that a little bit. So the goat which the lot fell on to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make an atonement with him and to let go the scapegoat into the wilderness. So now the goat that they had to kill, what did they do with its blood? They had to kill this goat, and they had to put that blood in a specific spot. Do you know? That's the Passover, and I'm coming to that too. So yeah, but that's a very important spot around the doors. But in this would have been after the Passover. He gave them more rules. But listen to this in verse 15. Then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering that is for the people, and bring his blood within the veil, and he shall sprinkle it upon the mercy seat. Where's the mercy seat? Remember that box, that Ark of the Covenant? And all the failures are inside. But the mercy seat is right on top in the middle. And the two cherubims are covering it. And they take that blood and they sprinkle it on there. Then when God looks down, looks at all their failures, he says, but I see the blood of that innocent goat. And that covers, that's mercy. The people don't get what they deserve. The goat got the punishment. Right? Does that make sense? So I'm bringing this out. Where am I going with this? Well, the story that we're reading today is in Joshua 2, and it's about a woman named Rahab, and she had failures. Okay? But that did not define her destiny. Even though we fail and we look back in our past, that doesn't mean we have to fail in the future. So, let's do what Rahab did, and when she had an opportunity, she turned to God. So I'm going to turn right to the story and start reading it. I didn't realize how much was in this story until I started studying it. That's the beauty of it. So, Joshua, this is Joshua chapter 2, and it says, Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Shittim two men to spy secretly, saying, go view the land, even Jericho. So, they were supposed to go spy out this land, and Jericho, because Jericho was a big fortified city, had huge walls. Now, why do you think Joshua only sent 2 men when Moses sent 12? Why do you guys think? What happened when all those spies came back?
2 were good.
2 were good, 10 were bad. And it just so happens that Joshua was one of the 2. So he said, Joshua 40 years ago was ready to go into the promised land, and he couldn't go in because of the other 10 spies. They were so negative, they said there's giants over there. So this time Joshua secretly only sent 2 men, and he said, go secretly. So they went secretly, and they had to be kind of secretive because they were sneaking over they had to go across the Jordan into this big fortified city to spy it out, to see where they could enter in and attack. So they had to be secret about it. So they came to a harlot's house named Rahab, and they lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, there came men tonight of the children of Israel to search out the city. So think about it. Here you have these 2, probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing, 2 million Israelites. Jericho is only about 2 miles away from the Jordan. We say the Jordan is down here. And I bet when everything is real quiet at night or early in the morning, they could probably hear these 2 million people. Or if the wind was right, they could probably smell their animals. They knew what they were trying to get over. So the king was watchful, watching when they come over. All of a sudden, they noticed 2 strangers. Somehow word got out anyway. And the king sent his soldiers to Rahab's house and said, where are these men? What do you think Rahab did? What did she do?
That they ran down.
Yeah. Oh, did she lie? She did. But let's look at, like, the Bible says thou shalt not lie, but look what she was doing. She was protecting God's people, right? So God had a plan for her, and God can forgive those little white lies if he sees the intentions of it. So that's exactly what she did. She said, yes, there were 2 men here, which, let's see, where am I? But they went out, and where they went, I don't know, but pursue after them quickly, she said. You might be able to overtake them. And in the meantime, her house was built Rahab's house was right on the wall. So I'm going to try and make this window match up with this window. And when she heard that the king found out, she took the men up on her roof and made them lie down on her roof. Then she took flax and laid it over them, and you couldn't see them. They were totally hidden, and these stalks of flax, I did a little research on those. I was like, what are these flax? And I think that she and her whole family were like, not farmers, but they would gather this flax, and then you'd have to take it and lay it out so the sun would hit it, and then you could take it apart somehow and get the fiber out. So what do you do with fiber? You can make yarn, you can make clothing, or I think she made ropes because she had plenty of ropes in her house, as we'll see later. So I think she made all kinds of stuff like that. So she had hidden them, and because they knew she had flax, it was like the whole roof was covered in it, and these men were laying underneath there. And so the men pursued after them. After she said that they left the gate, they pursued after them, and they closed these gates so no one could come in and out anymore. And the men went after them all the way to the Jordan unto the fords. And so down there, we'd say the fords of the Jordan are where they could go through the Jordan without drowning. There was a passage there that they would, and the men went straight to it because they knew the Israelites were on the other side of the Jordan. And if these two spies come from that's the only place they could cross. So they went down to the fords to look for them. And in the meantime, Rahab went up on the roof, and she said, I know that the Lord, so let's pretend like this is up on the roof. These men are too big to be standing up here, so I'm just going to put them down here, and we'll make an image in our mind that she's talking to them up on the roof. And she came to them and said, I know that God has given you all this land. They were probably up on the roof, and she said, all this land. And the terror is falling upon us, and all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea. Guess how many years ago that would have been? 40. 40 years ago, the Lord dried up the water. Then she said, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorite, she said, you guys utterly destroyed those two kings. Now, that would have been way more recent. That was, I don't know, maybe just a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure the time frame, but it was a lot more recent. And she said, as soon as we heard all these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth below. What a statement. Now, so I can put this into your guys' mind, what she's saying. Micah likes to play baseball, right? And before Micah goes to a game, I always try and put an attitude in his mind that he's going to win. I say, Micah, you go up there, you play as hard as you can, you pitch as fast as you can, and you strike everyone out that you can. Now, let's say in the playoffs, all the teams would have seen how fast and hard, and no one could hit a ball that Micah pitches. And all of a sudden, before the playoffs, they would say, look, Micah's pitching again. We can't even, our hearts are melting. We don't even have any courage to go up there and bat because he pitches so fast that we can't hit it. There's no way. Now, Micah's teammates would hear them talking. They would go up and say, Micah, this game is over before it started. They're scared of you. Right? This is exactly what these spies needed to hear. They went over there to spy out the land, and she was telling them, they are deathly afraid of you guys. They said, perfect. We don't need to go spy out anything more. But, so she said, now therefore I pray that since I have shown you kindness, you also show kindness to me in my house. Give me a token. Give me a promise that you'll show kindness back to me, right? So she said, save my whole family, father, mother, sister. And the men answered her, our lives for yours. Why do you think they said that? Because all she would have had to do is make one phone call to the king, and the king would have came and killed these, right? They didn't have phones back then, but she would just had to yell from the rooftop. So I'm sure she said, my life for yours. I'm saving your life. I hid you guys. Now can you spare my life? So the men answered and said, when it shall be, when the Lord has given us this land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. And then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the wall. So, like I said before, she lived on the wall. This was a big, imagine how big this wall was if you guys could fit your house on top of a wall. That's a pretty big wall, right? So she threw the cord out the window, and these men climbed out through the window, because remember, the gate was closed and guarded, and there would have been guards. They would have caught them. So she took that rope, and they got out. Now, she was a smart woman. She knew that the guards went to the Jordan. So where did she tell these two spies to go? Exactly. She said, go up in the mountains. Go this way and wait 3 days, because she knew it'd probably take a day to go down to the river, a day to look for them, and a day to come back. That's 3 days. Then the spies have a clear shot down to the river and to go back. Because if the spies don't make it back, no one will know that she saved them and her family's in danger. So she wanted to protect these spies. So that's exactly what the spies did. But before they went, they said, well, when we come back into the land, the only way my soldiers will know that this house is yours, if you bind this line of scarlet thread in the windows, which thou hast let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father, thy mother, thy brothers, everyone into thy father's house. And then they said, and it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the house, if they don't stay in the house when we come to make war, we don't know these people. So if they don't stay in the house, they go out, then the blood is not on our hands, because we don't know them. They have to stay in that house. So that's exactly what happened. And when they came into the mountains, they abode there 3 days until the pursuers returned. So the two men returned and descended from the mountain and passed over, came to Joshua, and told him all the things that happened. And they said unto Joshua, truly the Lord has delivered into our hands all the land, for even all the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. They were deathly afraid. So real quick, what can we learn from this story? Obviously, Rahab's life was not the one she wanted. If she would have been living the life she wanted, she would have handed these two spies over to the king and kept living her life. But circumstances have a way of pushing you places that set you up for failure if you're trying on your own. Now, Jericho was a wicked Amorite city. Okay, way back in Genesis 15:16, God promised Abraham all this land, but he said not until the iniquities of the Amorites was full. So now we see it was time to pass judgment on these evil, sinful people, but there was one person and her family in all amongst these people that God thought he could save, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. There was Lot and his wife. So question for you children. What do you children need in order to be saved? Now, before you answer it, don't answer Jesus. A lot of times when I ask a question, Jesus is the right answer. In this case, Jesus, yes, you do need Jesus to save you, but I'm looking for a specific answer. And if you're thinking the answer is believe, yes, you need to believe in order to be saved. But maybe I should ask you, what do you children need to be saved from? Sin. Exactly. Good answer. So we see that Rahab was living a sinful life. So when these two God-fearing spies came, she recognized truth. She said, I know the Lord has given you the land. And again, she said, God is from heaven below, above and earth below. And we see Rahab had faith because she only heard that the Red Sea split and she believed it. That's faith. But she didn't say, oh, I believe, and then not do anything about it, right? She said, I believe, and I'm going to hide you guys. And she acted upon her belief, as it says in James 2:25. Likewise, also was not Rahab justified by works when she received the messengers and had them sent out another way. It says she was justified. They're saying she was justified by her works to prove that she had faith. So the king of Jericho would probably have Rahab killed if he found out what she did, because she would have been guilty of treason. Do you guys know what treason is? That's betraying your whole country. It was going to get betrayed. But how could she trust these two spies? Do you children trust Christians, even if they're strangers? So she wanted a covenant. Do you guys know what a covenant is? Exactly. The rainbow is a token of a covenant that it will never rain, a flood. So what they wanted is she said, make a covenant, and they said, this red cord, if you keep this red cord, then I'll know. And I'm gonna call this red cord the bloodline, okay? There's a bloodline or a red cord that they escaped from, and it would protect them, okay? So the bloodline will protect Rahab and her whole family. Whoever is in the house when judgment comes will be safe. But you have to be in this house, in this bloodline. And that's where the Passover comes in. If you would have had that blood above your door, and the Israelites were very familiar with that. This made perfect sense to them. They said, okay, if you have this red scarlet cord on your house, we won't hurt your house. Exactly like the death angel did. So they were real familiar with that story. So you children do realize that God has to judge sin, right? And we all have sin. So in order to be saved from that judgment, whose bloodline do we have to be in? Jesus' bloodline. Very good. Now, do you guys know something exciting? After Jericho was destroyed, remember, all the walls came tumbling down. The only house left standing, all these walls came tumbling down, right? The only house left standing was the one with the scarlet cord. It's not going to stick, but that's the only one left standing. All Rahab's friends, beside her family, were gone. What was she going to do? You know what she did? She went with the Israelites, and she ended up marrying. And it would be a very good story if she married one of the spies. She could have. I don't know. But what I do know, that the guy that she did marry says in Matthew 1:5, says his name was Salmon. Salmon and Rahab had a little baby. Guess what they named him? They named him Boaz. Then Boaz married Ruth. They named their little boy Obed. He begat Jesse. Jesse begat David. To make a long story short, Rahab is the great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus. Okay? So if you also want to be part of God's family, it's all in the bloodline. Okay? That's what kept them safe. Now, I'm going to end this story with another story with a little girl, just to help you guys understand why God chose people like Rahab. There was this little girl one time. She had a big doll collection. Her aunts, her grandmothers, everyone that knew this girl knew she wanted baby dolls for presents. She had ones with pink hair, with ponytails, with glasses, you name it. She had them all. She had them all on a line there. One day her grandmother came and asked her, which one is your favorite? Guess what the little girl did? She went into the closet, and in the closet, she pulled out a dirty baby doll that was missing a shoe. Its arm was pulled off. It had a kink in its neck, and she hid it in the closet because she was embarrassed how it looked, but that was the one that she loved the most. And her grandmother asked her, why is this one your favorite? And she looked at grandmother and said, well, Grandma, I love this one the most because if I don't love and take care of it, no one will. So my thing is, if you children ever become stuck in a closet or you think you've become dirty or whatever, get dirty because of sin, come out of the darkness, come into the light and recognize truth like Rahab did. Pursue it. And it's worth risking your life for. Okay? It's worth everything. So with that, we will close the children's lesson. You guys are dismissed.